post the little welcome thing. So, I don't see anybody there just yet, but I imagine they're in the wings. Have you noticed, a deterioration in the quality of YouTube as far as the comments and the handling of comments goes?
The quality of handling comments? What do
Well,
you mean?
it used to be like my my email address is a Gmail address. So it used to be like Gmail is divided into primary, promotions, and social. And all the comments used to appear under social. So I would go there and one by one, I would answer them. Then, maybe a month or so ago, excuse me, they stopped appearing there. And now it doesn't seem like, okay, so if I wrote you a comment and maybe asked you a question and then you replied, I would never see the reply.
Oh,
And
oh,
it just seems like it's taking steps backwards, because if this is about building relationships and followings, how is that supposed to help?
right. You know what, Hazel, I'm the worst one for that commenting thing and getting back. I, I have to literally put it on my schedule to do that. It's like I'm
Yeah.
the worst person for that. It's terrible. I'm so bad.
Oh, hi, Susie. And she says it happened to her.
Oh,
Yeah, a lot of people, I think many of us were in the dark for a while there about what was going on and why. And excuse me, is it just me? And then the minute we started talking about it, it started clicking for a lot of people that, yeah, something has happened and it's not an improvement.
yeah.
Um, Susie, it is YouTube. Because I finally Googled and said, why don't my YouTube comments show up in Gmail anymore? And the answer was YouTube has made the change. So it's kind of sad. I'm going to pop a fisherman's friend. It just kills me that I can be fine until I turn the camera on, and then all of a sudden the coughing begins. Maybe in the meantime, tell us what the temperature is in Arizona.
Oh, what is the temperature? I don't like, oh, 81.
Stinking hot?
81 degrees. So it's a little monsoony right now, but
Oh,
81 is not too bad. Actually,
yeah.
we're comfortable in 81.
Yeah. Cynthia is here. Cynthia Reyes. Do you know her?
Cynthia, yes, Cynthia's my buddy. She's my
Oh,
pal.
good. She said,
My crafty friend.
oh, she says, hey, girlfriend, sorry I'm tardy. Well, you haven't really missed anything, Cynthia, and welcome. We were just, we just slapped some lipstick on a minute ago, and I was just talking about how YouTube hasn't made commenting and responding to comments any easier. Um, yeah, I don't think I've ever been to Arizona, but I just question how people can get used to those extreme temperatures. Like,
Yeah, we don't. We don't. It's hot and we stay inside a lot. Uh, in the summers, you don't see a whole lot of people outside, and if you do, it's not till the evening. That's when I would go out and maybe take a swim, but yeah, we just don't go outside.
yeah, well, yeah, I suppose you have it. Yeah, good judgment has to prevail. What is the average winter temperature?
Mm, I would say some of the high days, like higher, I would say probably 75 maybe. You
Oh,
know, they're really
yeah.
nice days. That's why we get the snowbirds here, you know.
Yes.
All the snowbirds come here in the winter time. So, and I
Yeah.
live in an area, it's a retirement community. Well, part of it is, but it's called Green Valley, and a lot of golfing and stuff. So there's a lot of people
Oh, yeah.
from those states that come here.
Yeah. Well, and snowbirds, of course, refers to Canadians as well, although I don't know. I think there's been a dip in that, but we won't go there. Carol from Crinkled Path is here. So hi, Carol. Welcome.
Hi, Carol.
I think I think we should probably get right into this. Um, Now, as usual, I I looked at your channel. I watched a number of videos. I made my typical little paper of keywords or concepts or things I wanted to draw to your attention. And it only hit me earlier today. Here I am, a bookmaker, a journal maker, and I'm writing on half sheets of paper. Like, how dumb is that? Episode 17. So finally, today, I picked this thrifted, thrifted notebook up. And starting today, I'm writing in this book. So whatever
Nice.
you whatever you say or whatever I want to make note of, it's going in here, and I will go backwards and refill and fill in details from other interviews. I think it's a sad state of affairs though when it took me 17 weeks to figure that out.
Well, you figured it out.
Okay. So one of the things, I mean, a pretty obvious thing that I saw in a recent video is the fact that you had a little broken wing. You were all bandaged up. So again, we were talking before we went live, we were talking about how your camera must have, how you can rotate things. In that video, it looked as though it was your right hand. So I was totally shocked when you lifted up your left hand a while ago and showed me that that is the one that you've had surgery on.
Yes.
Yeah, in that video, I think you were still wrapped up just in bandages or something. Wasn't it all white?
Yes. I had surgery on my left hand. It's CMC astroplasty. I can never remember. Anyway, astroplasty.
Easy for you to say.
Carol probably would know this. She would know what surgery I had, but it's on the base of my throat. Basal arthritis something surgery. But yeah, so I had that on my left hand. I have to have it on both hands, but I did my left uh first, and I thought I'd be able to go and get the other one done right away, but because I thought it can't be that bad, but it's pretty bad. I can't do anything. Yeah, just
So
that's all
is that thing essentially a splint that is keeping the
my
joint rigid so that it will, whatever needs to reconnect will reconnect?
yeah, right here on my thumb. It's keeping it straight so I don't move my thumb. And if I have my
Yeah,
hand out of this, I have to leave my hand totally, like I can't do anything. I can wash my hand and
yeah.
let the water run, but I still have stitches right here. So
So what do they say is the recovery period?
yeah, so right now let's see, this Friday will be 3 weeks since my surgery. I'm thinking 6 weeks. I get this thing off. And they said I probably wouldn't need physical therapy because I'm doing pretty good. But I've looked on YouTube and it looks like the recovery is about, it seems like 3 months is a good time where people are actually able to open jars by themselves and do all that stuff. So
Yeah. Well, I have hi Susan. Susan from I Totally Love It is here as well. I
Hello.
totally feel for you because a long time ago, I had rotator cuff surgery, of course, on my dominant side, which is my right side. And, obviously I needed the surgery because I would have lost all function. I was already having a muscle atrophy in the upper shoulder. So the surgery was a blessing. But my goodness, the recovery period is something else. And when you get your other hand done, your dominant side, you're going to find just how many things you can't do with your left hand. Um, so it, I feel for you. And it's,
Yeah,
I
thank
guess,
you.
when you get your other side done, will you actually be able to be off work for a while? Because I imagine that's your major keyboarding hand and so on.
Yeah, so I thought working from home, I didn't think it was going to be like this. So I could have taken plenty of time off from work, but I thought I can do this. And you're right, my keyboard hand. Plus, I can just do dictation, and let it type for me, my notes and stuff. But I'm definitely going to take some time off from work. Um, when I get my other hand done, I'm just, and I'm going to take like 3 months off or something like that, or 2 months, or I'm just not going to deal with this because even my left hand, it's, I'm having to do everything under my arm, like put a jar under my arm just to, turn it, or open the shampoo under my arm. It's
Yeah.
terrible. So, and I can't
Yeah.
imagine. So yeah, I'll
Yes.
take them off.
Try pulling up a zipper on your pants or
I'm
try
in,
to wipe your bum.
yeah, that.
That's what's coming, my dear.
I'm thinking about all of that. Yeah, I, when this is done, I'm going to try practicing a lot of those things with my left hand so I can be
You're
like,
gonna
hey,
ambidextrous. Not so long ago, I came across some handwriting that I had done while I was in the splint, and of course before all the range of motion came back. Well, it's terrible. Like you're not going to be able to write either. Anyway, we're not gonna belabor that. However,
right.
you did tell me, just in relation to another question, like sort of your background and your career and whatever. Why don't you tell us the story of what led you to the point of even needing this surgery and tie in the whole bit about your career?
Yeah. Okay. So, um, I started working well, let's just go back a little bit more than that. Uh, I never worked when my kids were small, really small. I started working when my youngest was 11. But I wanted to be a border patrol agent or a customs agent. And at that time, when I was looking into something like that, you needed a year of law enforcement. So I used to see these guys dressed in this uniform on the corner waiting for like a carpool or something. I really didn't know what they did, but I looked into that. Turns out they worked at the prison. And so I was like, you know what? I'm going to look into that. They look like law, then maybe it's law enforcement. So I did. I went and looked into it. And so I went a year to the day that my father passed away and went and applied for that job. And I got it, thinking I was only going to be there 1 year because remember I wanted to be a border patrol agent or a customs agent. But I ended up getting really good days off and a good shift, and I ended up staying there. So
Just
so
for
that
30
never,
years.
right. So that never happened. But uh soon after I started working there, I noticed, there was a lot of broken people there. And I worked with men my entire career. Young ones, old ones, but men, all men. My father was my dad used drugs when he was younger, and he died because of his addiction. And so that's why I said a year to the day he died, I went and applied for this job. My dad never wanted me to get into law enforcement, and for obvious reasons, for his own whatever. But I did. I went there and I realized this could have been my dad if he'd have had a chance, you know. Prison doesn't have to be a punishment, it can be an opportunity. And I started moving up the ranks. I went up to sergeant in the security aspect of it, but shortly after that, I was like, I need to go to school, and I got married really young. I was only 18 when I got married, and um, you know, so I didn't have any college or anything like that. And I went back to school, got a bachelor's degree, but to be a counselor here in Arizona, you need a master's, so I had to continue, and that's what I did. It took me a lot of years because I also went through a lot of personal things, you know, that I went through divorce and all of that. So um yeah, so I ended up transfer getting my master's, getting my license to be a counselor, and I specialize in addiction with these guys. So I think what my passion is because of my father, and um you know, and his struggles. I also have two siblings who were alcoholics, one who passed away and one who is just not the same. He's, you know, and you can say that word, what's that phrase, functioning alcoholic, you know, that's just, you know,
Yeah.
somebody is struggling. So
So
anyways, that's,
the when we were talking about um, you know, the need for the surgery, that's when you said that you were, now I would call that position a guard position, but you said the correct terminology is officer. So you're a prison officer, and you believe that your injury that resulted in you needing this surgery in both hands is those oversized keys, those oversized locks, and the fact that there was always that repetitive um
yeah.
motion that caused the injury. So um it's not like, I guess, in the movies where everything is electronic and the doors just slide and so on. So because you've been
Well,
around a while.
yeah, when I first started, there wasn't that way. Everything was manual, but I think it contributed to it. I don't think it necessarily was the sole, you know, reason why I needed it. I also, you know, I've been crafting and using my hands, and to, you know, I also do DIY furniture, and I'm like, you know, I'm that I'll build stuff, I'll do all kinds of things. So I think that, you know, that's probably contributed to, because this is not like carpal tunnel, you know, just from typing. This is from
Yeah.
using our thumbs, you know, that
Yeah.
the, you know, pressure of that. So
Yeah. Well, and I think, most of us that are of a certain age absolutely cringe when we go to a doctor for whatever reason, and they say, well, that does happen to someone your age. So it's kind of probably also a result of living a certain number of years as an active woman doing many things. Things just start wearing out, like knees and hips.
right. You know what, it may be. I don't think, like, I think 60, I'm 60, and I don't think that um you know, a lot of it, I think it's wear and tear, because there's other people that are, you know, older than me and haven't had that problem. I think that some of us, it's
Yeah.
genetics and all of that too.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Yeah.
but I also think, like when I went to the doctor for my evaluation, he did say, you know, like, I said, well, what can I do so it doesn't progress? And he said, stop crafting, stop doing what you're doing. I've said, that's never going to happen. So let's just fix this, because you know, I'm not the person who's going to stop doing any of the things that I do. As long as I'm alive, I'm going to keep doing what I do, and that
Yeah.
includes the work I do too. So
Yeah. So I think that, and I said this to you before we went live, one of the things that has been a constant driver in my life is my belief in lifelong learning. So to hear you talk about, you know, um, marrying early, which many of us did, um, going, seeing an opening or wanting to progress in your career from obviously the officer role to the counselor role, that involved more education. And you also told me that as we speak, you're working on another master's degree. So maybe talk a bit about, what drives you. Is that something, is that a goal that you set for yourself? Is it part of your life philosophy? Or like, just tell us how and why you're doing this.
Um, so I questioned the age thing too when I wanted to get another master's degree late in age. I have an aunt who's 90 years old. She'll be 90 this coming next in September. And I asked her, I love her. She's just this wonderful, beautiful woman, and I just love her. And I asked her, I said, Aunt Virgie, what would, if you could, would you still be working right now? Because she's like, she's, she doesn't, there's no decline at all, no decline. And she goes, yeah, if my kids would let me, I certainly would. And I believe that. And because I thought as long as I had all my faculties, I can do this kind of work the rest of my life, you know? Um,
Yeah.
and so I thought, well, why not then? I'm going to be 90 anyways, or 65 or 70 anyways, might as well have the degree. So, so that's what drives me, is that if you tell me I can't do something, I'm going to prove to you that I can. And it's one, I don't know if
Well,
it's a flaw or what, but it's just what I do.
well, and it's also nice to have a living, breathing role model too, someone to emulate and kind of think, hey, maybe I've got some of that genetic material in me as well. Um, well, and you also said that of course, because of technology, you're able to do your work over, from home with inmates. There's no need to travel. You're in your space there doing your thing. So, I mean, it does seem to make a lot of sense on a lot of levels. So is the work for the additional education and qualification, is it online or is it in person, or how are you juggling fitting all that into your schedule?
It's
The
online.
study part.
Right. It's online. Um, I, yeah, I don't plan on staying with the department much longer. I think I've given it uh, a a big part of my life. Because there's a lot of work that needs to be done that I have to separate that from the department. So what my future holds, hopefully, I'd like to do counseling in person. If you hear my dogs, I'm sorry, the door's closed, but
That's
they're
okay.
greeting their dad. Um, so so yeah, what that looks like later on for my future, I don't know. I know there's opportunities still to do it online. I don't know if that's.
Yeah.
I also am an independent. I have an independent license, so I could work for myself. So that's an option.
Yeah. That all sounds very interesting and um exciting, in the sense that you do have the opportunity to make a difference in somebody's life. Um, but I guess it also makes me think of that expression, when the student is ready, the teacher appears. So are you finding that with so are the people that are getting counseled by you, is that their choice, or is that mandated by either a judge or the prison system itself, that they must go through perhaps so many hours or whatever of counseling? How does it work?
It's a choice. It's a choice that they can make for themselves. I meet with them. I talk to them. I ask them. I do an assessment, and if that's something they want, to do, they can. It didn't used to be that way though. They used to have to, it was a mandate that they had to go through the state. If they had a drug charge, they had to go to some sort of substance abuse counseling. But we don't do that anymore. There was lawsuit and injunction and all of that, and now they have a choice, which I like.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like it. I also want to say that like with the work that I do, I'm able to bring in my creativity into that realm of, I actually have a junk journal that an inmate made for me when I worked in person. And it's funny, I'll show it someday in a video, but because I forgot I had it till just right now, but they use to make things shiny. They use because they're so that they're very creative. Talk about creative. They're creative, and they used floor wax to make the paper hard to make their covers. So, and he used to thread the like to do the pamphlet stitch. They
Yeah.
literally took the orange thread from their clothes and made the string, and they made me a journal, and they in the inside of this journal they put all kinds of inspirational quotes in this journal for me. It was
What
really
a
cool.
precious thing.
Yeah, it's really cool.
So we're okay. So I didn't ask you about the origin of your channel and how long you've been doing this, other than I know of some of the stuff you said in the video that you've been around a while and it's kind of hit and miss with your schedule of, video uploading videos and so on. So maybe talk a bit about what made you start a channel in the first place and some of the challenges that you have encountered with that, and it's kind of the ebb and flow of how it's been going.
Yeah,
And hi,
so
Teresa.
hi Teresa.
Teresa DeFredo's here.
Hello. Let's see. When I started, there was people on here that are no longer here. There was a lady, I think she still has a channel, Triple Dog Dare You, and her name was Lydia, and she really took me under her wing. And I said, I want to start my YouTube channel. And she goes, just do a haul. Everybody does a haul to start their YouTube channel. So that's what I did. And she kind of, so that's when I started. And I think that was like 2011. And then there was this lady, she's not around either. Her name is Pocket Full of Vintage. And she was from Australia. And I used to watch her videos. And that's where my first junk journal is, I have a video on it. It's my soul book, but it's from 2013, I think. It's like, and it's a long book. It's a big one, but that was one of my first ones. My channel has had a couple names. I went by my name for a while because that's what I did. But then I had one other name, Creative Cottage, and I was like, I'm not a cottage person. I don't live in a cottage. So I live in Arizona, so there's no cottage here. But
Yeah.
this name's gonna stay, and I'm gonna tell you why. Tucker, if you don't know, I might have mentioned him in videos, but Tucker is
Yeah.
he's 12-year-old Lhasa Apso poodle mix dog, and Tucker has been with me from he's gone through. They say, they save our lives, vice versa, but Tucker had parvo when I purchased him. I actually met the guy to buy Tucker for $150 off Craigslist on a Monday night, on Friday night, and I met him in front of Michael's craft store too. And
It
and
was
I
meant to be.
but by Friday he already had all the symptoms of parvo. I took him in and he was tiny, and I didn't have the money to they said it was $3,000 to back then. I didn't have that kind of money at all. And I said, well, what can I do? They said, give him give him fluids, and here's a saline bag, take this home. They told me later they knew he would die, or they thought he would die for sure. But I went on YouTube and I looked, and this guy had saved a whole litter of Rottweilers by giving them Pedialyte. And he said they don't die from the virus, they die from dehydration. Keep them dehydrated and your dog will live. And I followed that guy's direction, and I set my phone for like every 3 minutes, and I gave Tucker like a syringe of Pedialyte, and he survived. And then, but it goes on, fast forward, Tucker and I make this life together, and we I get my apartment and everything's great. Life is good. I'm getting my stuff back together, my head, because I was broken hearted, broken spirited, you name it, I was broke. No money in the bank, broke, everything broke. And I was starting to get my momentum, and I get a call, and I come out of the grocery store, and I get a call, and my neighbor's like, "Trudy, where are you? Your house is burning." And I'm like, "What do you mean my house is burning?" I thought he was messing around. And he goes, "Trudy," and I could tell he was really distraught. And I go, "Where's Tucker?" Tucker was in the house. I said, "Is Tucker?" All I kept saying was, "Tucker alive? Is Tucker alive?" And he said, "I don't know. They're working on him." And he started crying. And I was like, I lost it. It was just this horrible thing. But people are good, and I'm going to tell you that I realized how good people are. I met the captain of the fire department at the hospital, for animal hospital, with Tucker, and I only had it was $256 to my name, and the receptionist there at the place said to see him it was going to be over $500, and I said, "All I have is this. Can you take this and I'll make payments?" And the captain comes behind me, big old tall firefighter comes behind me and says, we're going to take care of this. Take that dog back there and please just work on him." And I just started crying, because you just like, people are good. And yeah, so I lost everything in that fire but Tucker, and I don't care about anything else. And so Tucker is like, that's where the Tucker, and I when I chose that name, it's because he's got to live in my life forever. He's 12, so
Yeah, that's both a very heartwarming and a very heartbreaking story. To have suffered, number one, the trauma of a fire, but I can see how that is an unshakable and an unbreakable bond, because you literally brought, um, you know, you brought the dog back from death a couple of times by the sounds of it. So yeah, I can see you guys being partners forever.
yeah,
Um,
definitely.
so how, and I mean, so at that point, when all this was happening, were you already crafting and okay, so how does I mean, obviously craft supplies are not near the top of the list when you've lost the clothing, you just have the clothing on your back and no place to lay your head down. But what was the process of rebuilding and starting from scratch? And what's the takeaway lesson there? Because, a lot of YouTube, a lot of what I do and a lot of what other people do is about acquisition. We're constantly buying things and we're selling things and we're buying things and we're sharing things. But that's just it. They're things. So tell us what this was like for you.
So what didn't burn had that soot on it, right? So if it burned, it was gone, but if it was there, it still had soot. There was some things that I could salvage of my craft supplies, because it didn't go into the craft room, but all that soot went everywhere. Paper was ruined. If it was paper, you couldn't get that smell out. Um, it was it was hard getting rid of. I had a whole team of people come and just start dumping all these things and crafting. I had a craft room, and they were just like getting bags and just dumping things. But I'll tell you, it's affected me now. Now I have trouble getting rid of things
Uh,
because so and I have to be mindful of that. um so I work on that. That's something that I have to really work on because I know that's affected me. It's like uh, I said this. I said, if you go to, like, it's funny because the CD cases that we use for our journals, right? Well, anything, library cards. If I see something like that at a thrift store, I buy it because you're never going to see it again. In my head, I'm like, you're never going to find it again. Or my 50 boxes of my flashcards. I better buy them because someday they're going to run out. You know, so I have tons of them. And I have to just like, I think I have enough crafting supplies to last me even after that. For like 3 lifetimes, and it's like, it's overwhelming. That's how I
yeah,
feel now. It's too much stuff, too many choices. I find myself having decision fatigue. It's like too many choices. You know,
yeah.
um, so my
So
I
it's, oh, sorry. Go ahead.
no, I just was going to say that I think my takeaway is that you know none of this stuff should really matter. At the end of the day, I was able to bring my dog and he survived. And after that, and, even if I lost everything here, none of this should matter. And I have to remember that because that's truly how I felt back then. I didn't care about, you know, any of this stuff. Yeah, it kind of shifted something in me when I saw them putting it in the black bags and taking it out to the dump. But I was holding my little dog, and that was most important. And I say that, but I need to live that. I have to remind myself of that.
Well, yeah, I was going to just question that or push back a bit on that because you're saying it should. It, or that it shouldn't matter, but yet clearly it does because of the flashcard examples and all of those things. So, um, yeah, I think all of us struggle with that to some degree. We're always walking that fine line. We love the thrill of the hunt. We love, um, we're creative people. We see the potential. We see what others don't see. What the average normal person would think of, well, who the heck wants this? Or what, that's garbage or that's old or whatever, that's useless. We, on the other hand, see possibility and promise in all of these items. Um, I have yet to meet someone who doesn't struggle with finding kind of that healthy balance between acquisition and what we can realistically use in a lifetime. I don't know. If
I
someone figures out the cure, they could bottle it and become rich.
Well, I did find somebody. There's a lady, her name is Tammy Brackett, and she doesn't hoard anything. She makes everything and everything so frugally. And I want to grow up to be like her. I'm like, because she's like, she's got the secrets. She doesn't get attached to, she'll make a journal, or she'll make something and she'll tear it apart and use it for something else. I'm like, who does that? I can't do that. She's
Tammy
like,
does that.
yeah, Tammy
Is that
does that. And she's like,
is
it's
that okay?
incredible.
Sorry, you said Tammy Brackett?
Tammy Brackett. That's what Tammy
Uh,
Brackett. It might be designs. She might be designed, but you'll
So
find
that's a
Tammy Brackett.
YouTube. So
hmm
she has a YouTube channel. Well, I'll have to check this out because honestly, maybe the woman has two heads and I just can't really believe what you're saying.
She's a
Um,
frugal crafter.
And Cynthia is saying that she doesn't struggle either. Is that true? Do you know do you know Cynthia's habits?
Cynthia doesn't struggle. Yeah, she probably wouldn't get attached to anything. She can
Okay.
she'll if she's not using it, she has no problem getting rid of it,
Getting
I
rid
think.
of it.
Yeah.
So is Cynthia the one that you did the live
Yeah.
interview with and you were both crafting? Okay,
Yeah.
that was really good too. Yeah, I watched that. Um, yeah, that well, I'm going to need to think about that a bit. Now, I know that in one of the videos that I watched, you talked about how you've had this channel for a long time, and yet you don't have very many videos to your credit, that there has been, it's kind of been hit and miss a little bit. And you were talking about, I thought it was a three-pronged approach to how you wanted to focus your channel and what you were hoping to get out of it. Do you struggle, because I know many of us do you struggle with the dreams, the aspirations, the goals are one thing, and then sometimes the execution is another?
Yes. Yes, with certain things in life. If it um for some odd reason, I I'll just admit it, I haven't taken YouTube as seriously as I feel like I should have. You know, I I think that, I'm a person of my word. If I say I'm going to do something, I do it. And yet I've said things on YouTube and I don't follow through, you know, and I don't know why that is. I don't, I mean, just that I just don't care, or I really don't know, but it's not that I don't care. It's that other things will are my family, the things that happen in my life are more important than me getting a video or editing a video to make sure I get it out on a Tuesday night. If I said I was going to get it
Yeah,
Wednesday, one of my kids stops by, it's just not going to happen. And so,
yeah.
yeah.
I just want to say hello to Laura Harmon, who has joined us. Hi, Laura. And
Laura,
Carol is saying, I'm sentimental, and my catalyst for journaling was regaining good memories, and now everything brings new memories. Trying to get back to memory keeping journals. And Teresa's saying, I think Trudy is like me. Her family kind of rules the day. So if they need her, she will be there first. And I
that's,
think,
yeah, in a
isn't
nutshell.
that isn't that the definition of a woman?
Yeah.
Almost, I mean, there are the odd ones out there who manage to put themselves first, but I think most of the rest of us will drop just about anything to help family or um, rise to the occasion, which is, obviously a good quality, but it's also uh stops a lot of women from realizing their full potential. Um, Now I also know that because we talked about it, and also because you said it in a video, that you also struggle with ADD. And a few weeks ago, I had an absolutely incredible interview with Sarah from New England Young Journals, and I learned a great deal from her about ADHD. And there was a lot of activity in the chat because people were sort of self identifying or finding kindred spirits in some of the other people in the chat. But you said something that just I find fascinating. So tell me about what you know about this later onset version that is now afflicting more and more women.
So I wouldn't say it's later onset, it's later discovery of, women and their, I think that women in their late 40s, early 50s are getting more and more getting diagnosed in that age, during those years of their life than ever before. Why? I really don't know why. I know for me, I wanted to know. I started learning about mental health and some of you know, disorders when I was studying them, and I started thinking, that sounds a little bit like me. That's and so I decided, yeah, maybe you should get, checked out. So I did. I got I got a diagnosis, and they gave me the opportunity of medication, and I chose not to, not for any other reason, but because at this point in my life, I've already gotten this far in my life. I didn't feel like I needed the help, medication to help me out. So, um, I think that like and it's ADHD, ADD and ADHD, but it also can appear, that hyperactivity part of it doesn't look like I'm jumping on the bed, although I have jumped on the bed, but it can be
With
hyper
those
focused.
monkeys?
Yep. But I can hyper focus on a lot of stuff and just, without really too much, I can go down a rabbit hole like nobody's business, and nothing else. If I start a book, here's an example. If I start reading a book, I call them fun books, like a novel, not, a nonfiction novel, or a fiction novel, not a nonfiction. I I will not do anything else except finish that book. I can't. I just can't do that. Or I remember when I was really young, I used to sew my kids their costumes, and I would stay up the entire night to finish. I can't. And you know what? To this day, I'm still a crafter like that. I have to literally put a timer, because if I'm sitting at my table working on something, I will work all through the night, 4, 5, 6 o'clock in the morning, till I can't stay awake. Those are symptoms of that. And
Hmm.
so, you have to, it's balance is really, really hard for people like me, you know.
So one of the things you said in the video is that you're a consummate list maker. So what other tricks and techniques and so on do you use besides list making, setting a timer? Like what other coping strategies? Because I think there's something, whether a person has the condition, has the diagnosis or not, I believe that we can all learn from each other. Um, it if the advice is good, it's going to help us no matter where we are in our lives. So what else do you do to get you to the point where you can have a YouTube channel, have a full-time job, and be a student as well?
Oh, I have I call them systems. I put all kinds of systems in play. Um, I, I have boundaries are really important in my life for all the people that are, my kids know that they can't drop the kids off spur of the moment. Everything has to be planned unless it's an emergency. If it's an emergency, that's a different thing.
Yeah.
Um, but I do. I plan my meals. I plan my grocery shopping. I just went to San Diego, and I had a schedule of everything that I wanted to do. And if anything I do is, on top of that, that's a bonus. But I have to do these things. I have to get up in the morning. Get up in the morning and go walk, and I'm talking like you need to go walk on the beach, and you need to go have some quiet time alone. I have to literally make sure that I write that down and put that down so that I can get it done. Um, it's funny that you say this, because I wonder how people that don't make these kinds of lists function. Like, how do people do that? That fascinates me, that people can just, I call it winging life. It's like, how do you wing life like that? But I know people that do that, and they pay their bills, they have food on their table. I mean, it just kind of happens. And I feel like if I don't do that, it's all going to just like crumble. So those are my
See,
systems.
I would have guessed, I know that was a rhetorical question, but my guess would have been those people don't accomplish very much because they're probably going from one crisis to another. Oh, damn, the bills are due today.
Right.
That's how I envision that kind of a life. I don't know. That may be a bias on my part showing, because I am a list maker and a planner. And I think it just makes sense, because as you said earlier on, before we came on, when we were talking about, people, women in particular, being diagnosed later in life, is that we have busy brains and busy lives, and we have so many balls that we're juggling. So without a list or some guiding principles, it seems to me that it would be chaos. That's
Me too.
that's my theory.
Me too. But I know people function very well without lists, Um, so or to-do lists. I have to scratch off things. And that's because that gives me the motivation that I need, you know, to keep going. Like, scratch off something. It's like, yeah, Trudy, you did it, okay, another thing down, like I feel like I accomplished something, it's kind of like
Yes.
mentality of, make your bed, at least one thing is done today, that kind of
Yeah.
theory.
Yeah.
I don't know how.
So I guess and I totally hear you. And when you were saying about, you're a responsible person who keeps her word, but yet you've said some stuff on YouTube that you haven't followed through with. And I think, well, I can think of half a dozen things that I could use as my own examples of that. Like every time we start a project and don't finish it, or every time we say, well, we'll get back to this and I'll do a flip through or whatever. Those are small things, but yet I find that they seem to nibble away at, I was going to say, at my credibility. I don't, that may be making, that may be overstating it, but it bothers me at some sort of a level that if anyone is paying attention, I've said some of the same things over and over again and not done them. And I don't like, when my walk and my talk don't match, and when there isn't congruence between what I say and what I do. So it seems to me, I was going to give you a piece of advice, even though you didn't ask for it. So you said you had all these plans for your channel. If after time, over a period of time, you found that you just can't do it, could it possibly mean that that's not the right path for you at this moment in time? And can you give yourself the grace and the permission to say, I'm going to do what I want when I want it? I'm grateful that you're here as viewers when I post a video, but I'm not going to make myself crazy or, craft through the night so that I have content for you. I'm going to move when the spirit moves me. Is that a viable way to look at it, or is that, or or would you consider that shortchanging somebody, including yourself?
um so thank you, because that is good advice and I appreciate that. I i think I'm harder on myself, and it doesn't make me feel good but that you do it too, but now it's like somebody can relate, and that's kind of that's exactly what it feels like when you said gnaws away and chips away at your credibility. And I know you said that, but that's what it feels like. It's like that's not who I am as a person. If I say I'm going to do something, I do it. Anybody who knows me knows this. But
Yeah.
yet when I get on here, I'll say something. Why is that? Uh, when my daughter moved out, I thought, oh, I'm going to have all this free time to, do my videos, because I had a house full of people. I never had a moment to myself. And, and I thought, she's going to move out. That's why I did that video. I made a list. I'm going to do this. I was going to focus on certain things. And it just didn't, and then just life happens. I got this thing, and what am I crafting? I'm not crafting anything because I can't craft. And so I think I'm harder on myself. And you're right. I, I should I should just get to the point, like, when I can show up, I'm going to show up, and that's okay. And have grace, for myself because of that. I do the best I can, you know.
Yeah.
YouTube has been a really wonderful tool for me. It's been I've learned so many things from YouTube. I enjoy it, and I also enjoy the creativity of making videos. Um,
Yeah.
so yeah, I think I need to get to that. I need to just come to that point where, like, I'll do the best I can. I'll try to, and
Yeah.
that's where it's going to be.
I think that you said something that resonates with me and probably with others. Um, when you said that you're hard on yourself, I think that defines most women. I think we tend to be hypercritical of ourselves. We're the nurturers, we're the ones, the glue that usually holds a family together. We're we can think on our feet, we respond to any crisis. We're probably, top employees in the workplace, and involved in the community, and all those roles, all those things that women are sort of nurtured and raised to believe that they need to do. And quite often we lose ourselves in the process, because if the choice is disappoint someone else or disappoint ourselves, we're going to choose disappoint ourselves, or tamp down the need for looking out for number one. That whole usual analogy that they give about, put your own oxygen mask on first before you try to help the kid or whoever is beside you. So I think part of it, like, I'm a firstborn. I believed, and I used to wear it as a badge of honor. Oh, I'm a type A personality, um, chop, chop, get things done. And um, had expectations for myself, didn't want to disappoint anyone. Firstborns are traditionally people pleasers. We want to please our parents, we want to please our teachers, we want to please people in authority. And I think at some point something clicks and we realize that's a hell of a way to live, and it's not a very good way. Um, it's good to have plans and ambitions, but if we tie ourselves in knots and are burning the candle at both ends because we dare not disappoint someone, and that someone could be ourselves, I think, and I'm not telling you or anybody else what they should be doing. I think this is kind of an epiphany for me, that isn't it more important to just be true to oneself and honor one's own, um look out for number one for a change?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think a big part of that is, comparison is the root of all evil, in my opinion. But I look at other people's channels, and I think, like, I know that I'm not in the same position as a lot of other creators, like, for instance, Tammy Brackett, right? She is retired, and that's pretty much all she does is her channel, and that's what she puts her, so that's her work. I'm not at that place in my life, or I don't even know if I will ever get to that place in my life, where I find, being in a clinical session is rewarding to me. So I don't know if I'll ever moment of just
You kind of froze up there, kiddo. Maybe someone could write in the chat whether she's frozen at your end as well, or if it's just on my screen that she stopped mid-sentence.
it's I think it's both. I don't know.
Okay, you're back again. You
Oh,
were
okay.
frozen there for a while.
Oh, okay.
I ca- I can't quite remember what the last thing was that you said that I
I
heard.
don't know either. Yeah, I was getting the wrong person. I
Well,
don't know.
okay,
I
what you said is that you don't know that you'll ever fully retire because again, earlier on, you were talking about your 90-year-old aunt and whether you should be pursuing this other degree, and
Yeah,
you just feel like I get the feeling that you're gonna keep living until the day you drop dead, and you're
right.
going to keep learning and you're going to keep working and so on. So
Yeah, yeah.
yeah, there's
But I
nothing to say that everyone has to quit their day job or retire to become a full-time YouTube star.
right.
It's something that just gets worked into our lives.
Right. I wanted to say something about like that because I've incorporated like my craftiness or my creativity with like what making journals, and I just wanted to give some people another idea of where to get some materials because so probably about 10 years ago, well, no, maybe about 7, I don't know, it's been a while, but it was before COVID, years before COVID. I went and I toured a women's shelter, for a women's shelter, and I walked through the shelter and I asked the CEO. I said, "Hey, would you mind, because I think journaling is really important, really a good tool for people who are in recovery, people are trying to build their lives. I mean, there's lots of benefits to journaling, not maybe not like how we journal and art journaling, well, even art journaling, but journaling is good to reflect." And so he's like, I go, "Would you mind if I made them some journals?" And he goes, "No, they would love it. It would be like awesome." So I started making this this place their journals, and but I was running, like, remember, this is like right after the fire. I didn't have a whole lot of supplies and I didn't have a whole lot of money either. So I went to a place where they alter wedding dresses and gowns and stuff. And I said, "What do you do with all the scraps?" And they were like, "Oh, we got like 3 bags over there. Go right ahead and take them." And then they were started calling me and telling me to get the scraps. And I had beautiful appliques and lace and tulle and just all kinds of beautiful, I mean, big pieces of, like, oh, like if they took the train off a dress and they would just dump these pieces of appliques and stuff. And so I started using that to make my journals. So yeah, everybody, I don't do that anymore because I accumulated so much. I still have some of that stuff, but you guys can go there and get any new junk journalers can get some really good supplies because that's what they do. They dump it.
Well, a couple of things. I think that there are lots of sources for lots of free stuff, including digitals. So anybody new to the game should trust all of us old timers when we say you don't need to have everything. Don't go out and buy everything. There are a lot of free sources of material. But
Yeah.
uh, even more important than all that was the fact that you made journals for a women's shelter. That's awesome.
Yeah, they loved them too. They really did. I haven't done that since after COVID, everything kind of shut down. I couldn't go over there. They didn't when I just never I need to do
So
something, but
how many, do you remember how many journals you made and
oh
donated at
yeah,
that point?
every time I went, I probably gave them like 20 journals. They were blank ones, and I showed the ladies how to make them themselves too. Like I would go through
Yeah.
them. I go, look at this is how you sew them, and and then I showed them my journals. I would take my soul journal there, and I would tell them, look at this is what you do. Save your trash. We save our trash. You want to journal your trash, so save your ticket, save this, save that. And so they would
Yeah.
do that,
Now, that's about twice now, I think that you've mentioned soul journals. So do you want to explain to me and anyone else what that means or how you define that?
So I made a journal. I actually have a video on that on my channel, but I that's a journal that I made. It's my first journal, first of all. But it's the one that I really processed my mother's death when she passed away. My mother died right before the fire. And that was one of the things that was really hard is that I'm the youngest. You said you're the oldest. I'm the youngest of 7 kids. And I was the only daughter. So all my mom's stuff came to me. My brothers just brought it to me. So I had all my mom's stuff there. I still have her clothes too, by the way. I can't get rid of it. But
How
well,
about
so
chopping them up?
some well, I did. I chopped them up and I made some bracelets for all the girls in the family, and I just put I wrapped her fabric around a bracelet and then put beads around it, and I gave them to all the girls in the family. I did that. But anyways, I my soul journal is just like where I haven't been in it in a while because that's where I pour out my my feelings, not just bad but good too, you know.
Yeah.
But I haven't done that, and it's not full, but I just
Yeah.
put a lot of stuff in there. My belief system.
Yeah. I think that's maybe one of the first things that I let go off, this feeling that I must journal every day of my life or I'm going to somehow be a failed human being. Um, I find that over my lifetime, I've written more during periods of angst or, a speed bump of some sort in life. I can't say that I've suffered in any, I haven't had trauma or anything bad, but we do know that there are ebbs and flows in every life. So that's when I'm more inclined to go to the page and write something down. Um, but I'm telling you, giving oneself permission to not do things is so freeing. Like Ukrainian background. When we used to live in town, a small town, 400 people, maybe it was 500 at the time. I'm a newlywed, have this, eventually have this firstborn kid. And we had a tiny little lot surrounded by all these little Ukrainian babas, like that's grandmothers. And so I'm raising this kid. I had a job, and it almost seemed like it was part of an ethnic mandate that a person is going to have a garden and you're going to be little Susie homemaker and you're going to learn how to can and freeze and make pickles and all those things. And I was failing miserably at that. And then I realized I am comparing myself to these 60, 70-year-old women who don't have anything else going on in their lives, that they're able to be there when that weed is about to emerge through the ground. Their lives were in perfect order. And I felt so inadequate in comparison. I'm thinking, really, that's BS. I'm doing a lot of other things. So accepting that I can't make a pie, I'm not going to be one of those kinds of gardeners. It makes it a lot easier to get through life with less maybe self-criticism or self-judgment and always finding oneself falling short. So I don't know.
Yeah, I think
I don't know.
a lot of us feel that way, and I think that's common in a lot of cultures. The expectation. I know, you know, when I was married, I was only 18 years old, and there was so many expectations. I wasn't even in my opinion, I'm not even an adult yet. Now here I am as I'm a parent, and I'm like, so that I'm Hispanic, and that's the culture. You're supposed to know. I didn't know how to cook. I didn't know how to do a lot of the things that I was, supposed to know how to do. Um, and I think that we put that pressure on ourselves, to, I think there's some freedom though in, I turned 60 in December, and I remember thinking, I'm like, okay, this is like that new era. And like, it's the time of my life where, and it's true, because there's a lot of things I don't really care about, a lot of things that aren't really important to me. Um, I'm not necessarily, worried about other people. I'm more worried about, um, how I am in the world, for myself. Going back to that word of legacy, I want my kids to know certain things about their mother, and
Yeah,
that's where my focus is now in life. It's like, yeah,
yeah.
it's important for me.
And it's I'm glad you rounded me back to that thing because that was one of the words that I put down on my paper as I was watching one of your videos, and I remember that it resonated with me because um, talking about that same firstborn kid of mine, I was asked to be part of a committee that was going to write our area's local history. There was a phase back in, so it would have been leading up to 1980. So there was a phase where every little one horse town was writing a history book. And I've always had some skill in that area. So I was on the committee. And here I would bring this little kid with me to this, we were meeting in this woman's house. And I kept thinking to myself, if I were to get hit by a bus, if I were to get snuffed out in my prime, I would like to have my name on something tangible. I would like to have my name on this book because this would be something that my kid, who didn't really know me because he was very young, could look back at and say, well, my mom had a part in that. So I think that's kind of what I think about legacy in that, and of course, as kids grow up and grandchildren grow up, and the older we get, um, we're living our lives, and everyone is all these relatives are probably making up their minds about us. Oh yeah, mom was pretty good at that, and oh my God, that woman, what in other regards. Um, so it maybe seems less important in my case as I'm going along, but it's also, I guess, another way to look at YouTube as a blessing and saying, hey, there's going to be some proof, some tangible stuff, some tangible proof of how I spent maybe some of the best years of my life. So I
Yeah.
like that idea of legacy, and I'm glad you said that.
Yeah, and I have 10 grandchildren, so they watch some of my videos, and the older ones. I have a group of older ones and then the younger ones, and the older ones, and they love them. They just think they're awesome, and that's so cool, Nani, and all of that stuff. And I think that I remember this lady I met. She was it was years ago, and she said, she goes, the only thing that you really have control about in life is what kind of a life that you lead, leaving that legacy for your children. And I was like, you're right. Everything else is outside, everything else, that's all outside of us. And so, after the pictures disintegrate and everything else, like us, we get those cabinet pictures, and it's like we wonder, who was she, what did she do, right? Wouldn't you
Yeah.
want to know, like, who is this woman, what made her happy, and all of those things. And so that's kind of what I want to make sure that generations to come, that my kids, their kids, can say, hey, that was I didn't make the best choices in, all through life, but I was a good person.
Yeah.
Be a good
I
person
think,
by
yeah,
making bad choices.
you've said a mouthful there for sure. I just want to maybe spend a little time
Yeah,
acknowledging some of these comments. Laura said, "Journals for a Woman's Shelter." Love that. Susie says, "Older age and wisdom." So, there's that poem in that book, "When I grow old, I shall wear purple." And I also think that Sophia from the Golden Girls could be a role model for us. And I think they used to explain that some of her outspokenness was a result of, I don't know, a stroke or something, or early onset dementia or whatever it was. But I think I find that in myself, the older I get, the less I am I was never interested in playing mind games or word games or misleading anyone. But the more likely I am to tell it like it is. And I think, frankly, that older people get away with that. As long as we're not just curmudgeonly and cranky all the time. Teresa says, so many people spend their lives chasing perfect. Nothing is perfect. It's just that some are better at hiding things than others. Ooh.
that's true. That's
That's
true.
true. Teresa also says that she's a middle child of the second set here, or better known as the mothering characteristics. Birth order is real. I'll ask Susie's question in a second. Cynthia is saying, yes, seeking perfection is mentally exhausting.
Yeah.
Cynthia also, birth order is real, that she's the oldest and she's bossy. Um, Oh, Teresa says, I always call the oldest the experiment child. And to some degree, that's very true. But Susie wants me to ask you if your counseling skills help you to counsel yourself.
Yes. And I say that because I think that I think that as long as we are able to listen, we should be able to learn, right? And learn from other people. And I don't care where anybody comes from, I don't care what their demographics are. I want to learn, even if I don't agree with these people, I want to learn what they have to say. And so, yes, that to answer your question, I do. But I think that I've done that all my life. I think that I've I think that I'm naturally, like, because before I was a licensed counselor, I had people in my office come to me on Monday mornings when I was at work and tell me about their breakup with their boyfriends and this, that, and the other, and just kind of all these like advice things. And, and I was that person to unload on. And I've always been that person. And to this day, I have friends and stuff that still do that, not as a counselor, but just as I'm that I'm their 3 a.m. person, right? That person that you can always call on. So
Yeah.
yeah, I think that I learn from, from them, from situations. but I see a counselor. If I have a counselor that I see. If I need to see a counselor, I'm going to go see. I have a therapist who knows I'm a therapist, and believe me, they don't want to see therapists, right? Um, but I have one therapist that that I have her on call, and when I need to see her, I can call her, and I can do a virtual thing just to kind of process something or a problem or whatever it is, and she's on call, and I think that makes a good therapist. If you need to talk to somebody, go talk to somebody. So
Well, and I would think too that having come from a background where there was alcoholism and drugs in your nuclear family, it of course put you at some risk for those behaviors because there seems to be that hereditary connection. But I also think that between that and some of the people that you encounter through your work, there must be, a kind of a cautionary tale there as well. That it's easy to make a few wrong decisions that can forever alter a life. So I think it seems to me, I always say that I want to learn from anyone's successes, but I also want to learn from their failures because my line is I'm not going to live long enough to learn all the lessons the hard way myself. So it seems to me, in relation to Susie's question, that if you can learn something from a person you're counseling and adopt it in your own situation, that's just smart.
um well, I don't know if I would learn to, I don't know if I let me just give you an example. So if I had a client who who said, I don't know, some sort of situation, or he gave me some sort of scenario, um I wouldn't put it on my life. What I would learn from this is, like, let me back up. If I have a guy and he's pissing me off, right? Somebody who's said he wants to be in treatment, but here he is, talking or cross talking or something like that, right? And I find I'm really annoyed by this. Okay. I'm really annoyed. That is my moment to learn something about myself. Because what am I annoyed at, right? How can I approach this to be a better person? This guy needs me more than he probably realizes it, but I need
Yeah,
to connect with him somehow. And instead of
yeah,
getting short with him, or ugly with him, or telling him to just leave, which I'm guilty, of being that person. I'm human too. I work with some difficult individuals where, I'm up to here and you need to go, and that's the end of that, you know. But I want to learn more about being patient and being more empathetic, because I've been there so long, I can call them on their BS too. You know,
yeah,
addiction tells lies, and you're right. I grew up
yeah,
in a household of lies and webs and all of that stuff. So I've seen this firsthand, and I'm not here to be, if you want help, then I'm here to help you, but don't waste my time. And so
yeah.
so
That aspect of tough love, so to speak.
yeah, without being
I'll
harsh and
help you.
ugly, you know.
Yeah. I think I had a little twinge of something run through my head as you were talking, when you were saying, what is there for you to learn about yourself in that interaction? There was a time when I was sitting on this board, and it was a huge board, way too big to be a functional governance board. But there were a couple people that drove me nuts. And you know what the moral of the story is? I was seeing in them something that I didn't like seeing in myself. It was like a mirroring.
Yep.
So pretty hard to lose your mind being pissed off at somebody
Yep.
when you can very easily see yourself being that person. It's very humbling, let's just say.
Definitely.
Anyway,
Definitely. That was that's I always say that, like, when someone's annoying you, that's a time when we need to look within ourselves and see what it is that, because it's mirroring, it's mirroring something inside of yourself. I remember somebody saying, man, I can't stand people who interrupt me. And I'll tell you what, that person was always interrupting everybody, always. And I was like, okay, that's like, I didn't say nothing, but it was like, that's one thing that makes me so mad, is that to be interrupted when I'm talking. So,
oh dear. One of the other things that I wanted to comment on, I saw it in your video, although again it was backwards, but I see it there above your head is carpe diem. My first exposure to that word was the Dead Poet Society movie with Robin Williams. Of course, I looked it up, and of course, the translation is seize the day. Tell me the significance of you having that on your bookcase there. What does that
so
mean to you?
yeah, I bought that when I was that's from Rocky Point, Mexico. And it's just, be the change you want to see the world, seize the day, make it your own, um I don't want to be a victim in this life, and as long as we're complaining, we're victim of that, whatever it is. If we complain about something, we're choosing to be a victim. So with clients, I always tell them, like, you can tell, here's how I look at it. You want to tell me something, that's fine, but, or anybody, if you say something to somebody once, that's fine, right? You get the feedback, maybe a little, hey, try this or that. But if you do it, if you come back with the same problem, then all you're doing is complaining, right? Or in my words, I would say the B word, and all you're doing is, so
Yeah,
you need to, like, look at that. Just like, a good example is this. I was complaining so much because my thumbs hurt, right? But I was afraid to go do anything significant, go get a surgery, you know. But I was like, you know what? Bite the bullet, because all you're doing is complaining about it when you live in a time of your life where you can have, true change. You could, and he said it's going to change your life. And when he said that, I said, then let's do this. And so
yeah,
seize the day. It's pretty significant. I think we all should seize the day.
yeah.
Create it.
Well, and I also see the optimistic, the promise in that phrase too, that sometimes we just need to be bold and we need to reach for those things that may end up being wonderful, that may end up being blessings, but sometimes we're just stuck in fear and inertia and not doing, just living by kind of an autopilot as opposed to, grabbing at something that could make our lives better,
Yeah.
even
Do
just
what
for that one day.
do what you can till you can't do it. Do what you can
Yeah.
till you can't do, you know, that's I see a lot of people, and I witnessed family members give up on life before they, you know, they really had to, and I guess you could look at that in addiction too, when you see people in addiction, or anything, could be food addiction, because addiction doesn't just look like drugs and alcohol, it could be a lot. Now we have phones,
It could
how
be
many
thrifting.
could
It
be
could be
thrifting.
thrifting.
Well, the thrill of thrifting, that's shopping, right? Thrill of
Yeah.
thrifting, to
Yeah,
go.
this I just can't get over how, um, I hope what the viewers feel the same way, whether they're here live or watching the replay. Um, this has touched on so many points that resonate with me, or points that I've felt or lived through or worked through or whatever. I I'm kind of I'm dumbstruck by that a little bit. Obviously don't have some of the same challenges that you've had to live through, but man, oh man, it seems like learning these lessons and figuring some of this stuff out has been, well, it's life altering. And it's funny, you were talking when I asked about carpe diem, you were talking about um that you're willing to help anybody, but if they're asking the same question or coming to you with the same issues, um and not making any steps to change anything, um that's they're not asking for help, they're just complaining, what I like to call bitching and moaning. um
I didn't say that.
as a as a firstborn, and this is before I got my own head straight in some regards. I always believed that, if I had an answer or if I thought I had a piece of advice, well, damn it, I was compelled to offer it. So, and sometimes even if it wasn't, to be honest. And then after a while, you see that pattern of behavior where the same people are having the same complaint, the same, life drama keeps hitting them over and over again. And I used to feel so invested in being the person that was going to, offer a book title or an agency or a phone number. Well, if you do this or this or this, it'll be better. And then you realize, well, some people don't want anything to get better. They just want somebody to listen to them bitch and moan. And it was um it was so incredibly important to realize that, because then you can very guilt freely wash your hands off that matter. Because if I'm thinking that, oh, I have to come up with the solution to your problem, that's kind of not a winning situation to be in, especially if
No,
the person doesn't want to change anything.
and it's draining for you too, you know?
Well,
And
exactly.
yeah, yeah. So yeah,
Um,
go ahead.
well, I was just going to say, you said, excuse me, you said the P word, and then I said the P word, and then I said the B word twice. Um, Teresa DeFredo has a swear jar, and every
Oh,
time she hears me swear, she puts money in her jar. She's saving for craft supplies.
oh,
So
nice.
Carol is saying that Teresa is making money tonight.
Wait a minute. Is
Yeah, Teresa, cha-ching. Obviously, if you and I were sitting in a coffee shop, we would have said those words and we would have laughed and totally understood what they mean and exactly the kind of personalities that would have said them. And
right.
hopefully YouTube will cut us some grace here.
Yeah.
I want to acknowledge somebody called Little This and That. Someone by the name of Jennifer. Do you know Jennifer?
Mm-mm.
Jennifer Thies. I don't, I might not be saying that right. She's just saying, I wish I had understood this when I was younger. And I don't know at what particular point in the conversation she wrote that or in response to what, but
Oh,
I will just reassure you that as try as hard as we can to learn from others, educate ourselves, be open-minded. Some stuff we're just destined to learn the hard way. or late.
Yeah, yeah,
Um,
definitely.
so don't beat yourself up about it. Just move forward from wherever you are and be grateful you got it now and not 5 years into the future, because that too is, um, I don't know. It's another way I think that we can tend to beat up on ourselves. Um, yeah, I don't know. One thing and I guess I need to start paying attention to the clock, but one of the other things that you mentioned almost in passing was the fact that you went through a divorce. So, and of course, you can say as much or as little about that as you want, but I'm always curious into what the life lesson, what the takeaway was, what the advice you would, give to your younger self or to someone like Jennifer or anybody who's listening. Um,
Um,
how did you, like, at what point in in your life was this happening, and how did you get through it and thrive and survive?
so I went through a couple to be clear, but I was married at a really young age to my high school sweetheart, the father of my three children. I was married to him for almost 20 years, but and he's still a friend of mine. We grew up right next door to each other. He's the father of my kids, so we're still friendly, and we can be in the same room together and all that sort of stuff. But 10 years after I divorced him, I married someone else, and he was a good person. He just wasn't good for me. And, but
Mhm.
when I left, it was just me and Tucker, and I had to rebuild my life. And I made some bad choices in terms of financial decisions, things like that, that left me really in a tough spot. I also was going through a lot of like spiritual growth. I was raised Catholic and ended up just a lot of different things, and that's when my path really started with my. I started learning about I started learning about other things besides what I had been brought up with, and that made more sense to me. And it really was a strong foundation for my spiritual my spiritual growth. And so that was during that time, but that's when the fire happened. My mother died. A lot of things happened. And I had to, I say this because a lot of people think that they can't rebuild their life, at 40, 50, whatever. No, you can rebuild your life. It only takes, they say, 5 years to actually revamp your life or whatever kind of life you want. Financially, I'd had no money in the bank. I had no savings, no credit. I had, a car that, was probably on its last leg. And I went and rented a place to live by my word, a handshake, and told the guy, hey, I'll get you the deposit. Just trust me. The only good thing is I had a job. I had a really good job. I worked for the department, but that's all. And I had to rebuild my life. And, I bought my home by myself as a single woman. I bought, I had rebuilt I had to rebuild my credit and all of that stuff. So when those women at the shelter, they're in a place where I was. And so I was able to talk to them and let them know, because I think sometimes in life, all we need to know to help us grow is hope, right? You did it, so I can do it, because you didn't have any more days, any more hours in a day that I do. We all have 24 hours
Yeah,
in a day. So
yeah.
it's not like you had a little extra than I do. So, I think that's what can help us all thrive. So, and I remember the day I looked at I took a selfie with my phone, and I looked so sad. And I asked my, I was like, Trudy, how'd you get there? How did you get to this place? This isn't, we don't grow up to say we want to be at a certain place in our life. And I had nothing, and I was trying to rebuild my life at, pushing 50. And I said, well, you got yourself in this, you can get yourself out of it. And that's what I did.
We do have to give ourselves a little pep talk every so often,
Yeah.
and have some faith too. I just want to acknowledge some of the other comments. This is back to the swearing. Teresa's saying if she had a swear jar for herself, it would be overflowing. And then somebody called Tammy. I don't know Tammy, but I'm so glad you're here. This is all caps, so this, like, she's literally shouting this from wherever she is. Hazel, this is great content. These interviews are so full of valuable information. You ask great questions and are able to share so honestly your relatable experiences with those you interview. Well, that's very kind to say that. And Jennifer was in clarifying my question about what her comment was about. She was saying that she wished she had known about mirroring sooner. I was
Oh,
just acknowledging how that was a past obstacle an obstacle that she has moved past. Um, that's okay. Susie is saying that's why a lot of interviewers say, "What advice would you tell your 13-year-old self?" And then Tammy is also saying, thank you, Trudy, for allowing us into a piece of you. And I think honestly um, that is the blessing. One of the best side effects of this whole series is that, almost without exception, people have allowed themselves to be vulnerable and to speak the truth, because I think that this is a safe space. And I know that that's almost like it's almost meaningless. We hear it so often. Safe space, safe space. But truly, you know, I'm not here to judge, and nobody in the chat has been judging anybody else. If anything, it's been an opportunity for people to feel empathy and to feel, oh, thank goodness, I'm not the only one.
right.
So yeah, this is great. And then Trudy says that, or I mean, Teresa says, I first met Trudy when I won the prize she donated to the live sale. If you haven't subscribed to her channel, you should. She's very talented. See, I
Aw,
thought she was only my agent, but apparently she's trying to help you with your channel as well.
yeah, she's awesome. Yeah.
Yeah. And of course, obviously we appreciate a thumbs up on this live as well. And I don't know whether I mentioned it in my correspondence with you, but Trudy, after probably tomorrow, you'll be able to share this video on your channel as well. And if you need my
Oh,
help figuring that out, I can tell you that.
okay.
Um, this, I, I don't know. I've just been touched in many ways by this. It's sometimes, like, I keep saying, when people offer a compliment about the series and what it's meant to them, I say to myself, or I say to them, um, yeah, there have been some incredible people on, because I truly mean that. And as much as there are similarities between us all, there are also some pretty distinct differences between us all. And I'm just so grateful that people are not being fakes and phonies. That people are just being real, because honestly, life's too short for playing games and trying to pretend to be something that we're not. So um
Yeah.
oh, and Caroline on the hillside just got here. Caroline, you're here just in time to have us say goodbye and watch the replay. Um, are there Now again, without you making promises you might not be able to or may not want to keep, are there any plans that you would like to announce that for your channel, for your creative practice?
Um, well,
I'm going to
no,
do whatever I damn well want to. So
right?
there.
Um, Actually, I just want to give you credit because I tried to do this sort of, I don't know, I guess not how you're doing it face to face, but you saw like Cynthia and I sat down and I wanted to do craft at the table, kind of get to know people. But one is this is a lot of work. I'm going to tell you what you're doing is a lot of work. You're reaching out to people and doing all that. And quite frankly, I just didn't have the time to be able to do that. And you've been really, some of the people I've really, well, all of them. I mean, I just enjoy getting to know them at this level, so this has been really awesome. So I just wanted to tell you that because I tried to do, I did Cynthia, she's my buddy, and she was my first episode. I have episode 1 on my channel, but that was the end of that because I just didn't want to. It's a lot of work to put that, reach out to people, put schedules together, all that sort of stuff. So there's a lot of that kind of stuff. As far as my channel, I don't have anything upcoming. I am going to say I'm getting really creative with the music and the videos and things like that. And right now, you guys, I have so many things in the back burner because I can't do anything with one hand. But Cynthia told me today to do some painting because I'm really frustrated that I can't be creative. And I didn't realize how creative I am. Like sometimes I think, wow, I didn't even make anything today, or I didn't do anything today. So I know I am pretty creative. So I think I need to do that. But I'd like to do something. I hope you don't mind, but if someone would like to email me, I have my email on my channel. Or do you is I don't know. I'd like to give away something today to someone somehow. Uh, it would be a surprise if, and I can send it to someone if that would be okay. So that's what I would like to do.
Well, that sounds very generous. Um, you might be setting a precedent of some sort, although I certainly don't want guests to feel like they have to give something. Okay, so how do you want to do that? Would you just maybe wait a few days until we see who watches the replay as well? And
Yeah,
then
well,
just, it could be old school. It could be names on a piece of paper thrown in a cup and
we could
and
do
do a
that.
draw that way.
Yeah, but I'd love to
Oh,
mail.
Cynthia
No,
is saying send her Tucker.
no,
Uh,
nobody
I think you're out of the draw there, kiddo, just for that remark.
send her.
Um, this has been really good, and honestly, I hope that it's. I think because I'm always trying to test my own understanding of what a person has said. That's why I tend to ask clarifying questions or summarize and say, did I understand you correctly? Or whatever the language is, to try to make sure that there's no misunderstanding, that I got what you said, I heard what I was supposed to hear. Um, I think that I said it earlier, when the student is ready, the teacher will appear. I think that anybody who is watching any of these episodes live or through replay, that there are so many nuggets of gold hidden in these conversations, or not even hidden, sitting on the surface, waiting to be discovered. Um, because where else would we get the opportunity to talk to thoughtful, like minded people with the same interests, probably facing most of the same challenges, whether it's a struggle with too much, or carving out time for artistic pursuits or whatever, we all have the same issues. Some people will have other issues in addition to that, maybe, um, an achy body or recovery from one thing or another. So I think that there's value in listening to every single word, um, being willing to share in the chat if people are, and just trying really hard to be real. Like the catchphrase to this is real conversations with real women. And now, of course, after this many episodes, most people have an understanding of what that means, what that looks like. But in the beginning, when I would be writing my little message, my little email invitation to people, it would I would have to say it would be the kind of conversation that I would hope that we would have if we were in the same room having coffee. And that's been the goal. And before we wind up today, I just want to give you a bit of a teaser as to who's coming up in September as guests. The first week is, her real name is April. She's Mama Juju, crafting on the back 40. And as a farm kid, we talk about the back 40 all the time. So I'll be interested in getting to know why she picked that. Angela, the traveling crafter, will be the next week. Lori, Enchanted Dreams, will be week 3. And I think she will have stories to tell because we know she's had no end of health challenges.
Mm.
Oh, Susie, good reminder. And believe it or not, I have to change my tagline because I'm going to have my first male guest. So it's going to be real conversations with real people. So it's Eddie from Eddie Makes Art.
Oh, okay.
So I'm really looking forward to meeting him as well. Okay, Susie is apparently treading on Teresa's toes and reminding me to ask you how you feel about the color purple. Do you love purple?
Oh, so I've heard you guys in lots of different conversations about the purple thing, and I'm a purple pink person. Purple to honor
Okay.
my mom, and pink is my go-to color. Like that, but purple to honor my mom. But my heart is pink, you guys. Sorry. And
Well,
pink,
we can tell by your glasses, your
yeah,
fingernails,
yeah,
and the pink things on your behind you
yeah,
there.
yeah.
And
But
the
I
other
do
thing that I didn't ask is, are you an introvert?
very much so. 100%.
I
Yeah.
think we're almost at a 17 for 17 yeses, I
Yeah.
think.
Can I just
Um,
say a couple things about
sure.
introversion and extroversion? Because a lot of people, I was with a couple over the weekend and they could not believe I was an introvert. Because I'm that person that will talk. I'm the person that will dance. I will try to do all. I can be social, but we should all remember it's how we charge back up, and
Yes.
that's what counts. After a while of being with people, I can be peopled out and I need to go be by myself. So it's how we charge ourselves. That's what defines us, whether we're introverts or extroverts. So
Yeah. How draining the experience of being around others is. Um, I think, was it Cynthia that said in that video that she could be on a desert island or a mountaintop or something and not see people?
yeah,
I'm thinking, yes.
that, that's her. Yeah.
And Tammy is saying that she would recommend watching these things with a notebook and a pen at the ready. Laura is saying, let's go pink. And of course, we don't discriminate at any colors here. And it's almost like I knew pink was the thing, eh? Okay, so yes, it depends how draining these experiences of being around other people are. And I have to say, it wasn't until YouTube that I heard people, and it's a made up word, I'm positive, that people don't want to go here, there, or the other place because it's too peoply out there.
People, well, that's the funny
Peoply.
thing. I, I, because I can be very social. I can go out. I'm that person. I'll go to every party. I'll be at every event. Um, but when I know that I'm just like you said, when that feeling of I'm tired. I'm tired of people talking. I'm tired of people asking me stuff. I just, you know, I need to go recharge. And that means I need to go by myself. And my family even knows I'm like, this is a day nobody asked me for nothing, not one thing. Do not ask anything of me. I am peopled out. So, yeah.
Well, my dear, it has been a pleasure talking to you. I think the people in the chat have appreciated having you here and some of the insights that we have shared. Um, I wish you a full recovery.
Thank you.
I think that you should definitely access some time off, especially when you get the next one done,
Yeah.
because I'm telling you, I've been without the use of my dominant hand and it ain't pretty. Uh, so, you know, and I also think that you may feel regret that, oh, I'm laid up here. I can't craft. I can't be doing my thing. Maybe this was intended to be a period of um introflexion, introspection, reflection. I made up a word there. Reflection and introspection, a time where, yeah, maybe the hands aren't working the way they should, but boy, the mind is still ticking away. And maybe that's the time to be figuring out once and for all, or not once and for all, for now, what do I want to get out of this creative practice? Does it even involve making videos? And if it involves making videos, it'll be on a hit and miss basis. But I'm done with the guilt and um, you know, the unfulfilled promises. And I'm telling you, I am going to be changing my own language regarding that too, because I get sick of hearing me make excuses. Um, so I imagine that others might be as well. So um, I wish you
I
a full recovery, a speedy recovery, and that you make the best of your convalescence, so to speak.
Thank you. I want to say that there's a book called The Four Agreements, if you've never read it, and it's one of the, because you just reminded me of this, is I live by that. Let your word be impeccable. And so
Yeah.
I need to be really mindful of what I put out there and just follow through. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm not going to say something I can't follow through with. So
Yeah.
trying.
I hope that isn't one of the books that I donated. I know I definitely have owned a copy, but it may be gone. Anyway, Trudy, it's been
Thank
a
you.
pleasure. And again, you can add this to your own channel tomorrow.
Awesome.
And let me know how the draw goes and who the lucky winner is. And yeah, that was very generous of you to offer that.
Absolutely. Yeah. So just
Okay.
I'll I'll put the email on my channel on the description. Will I have will I have the ability to do that in the description in my channel?
Well, I wonder. Nobody's ever asked me that before. I don't know.
Uh, well, if I
Susie,
can,
the book, Susie's asking the book. It's called The Four Agreements. And it was somebody Ruiz, right? Was the author?
yes. Hmm. Miguel Ruiz, I think.
Oh yeah,
Mhm.
Miguel. Um, yeah, I'm not sure whether you can add your own message or not, but um, I mean, obviously, anybody who watches this will hear your words. So,
Right.
you know,
Yeah,
they're the only ones who qualify to enter anyway.
exactly.
Someone
So
within
my
the
email
sound
will
of
be in
your
one of my
voice.
right. My email will be in one of my descriptions, if not this description on my channel. And then I'll pull a name and after it's for about a week or whatever, and I'll send you something. So
Okay,
all right.
sounds wonderful. Okay, guys, thank you so much for being here. As always, you have made this worthwhile.
Thank you, everybody.
Good night. Yeah,
Good
bye-bye.
night.